got really excited about the flipping concept. And so in the course of putting together my talk, what I started thinking about was, do I want to present data in terms of answers that it provides, or do I want to talk about data in terms of questions that it's been raising for me and use the opportunity to have this wonderful room to talk about them? So that's what I'm going to be doing. And I'm coming at this with a data set that my colleague Erin and I have been wrestling with for a little while. It's been provoking questions for us about several things. I have for a long time studied the ways in which people read social cues as a predictor of internalizing conditions, primarily anxiety, but also depression. And I have to say it's been really dissatisfying. There are a lot of data out there that yield mixed findings. So it started making me curious about what might be moderators we're not looking at, what are we not doing? And let's see, I'm not good at advancing these. Am I doing this right? Nope. I'm turning the brightness up though. I'll cancel that. That I can't do. Do I just use this? Okay. Before I go too far with that, we're playing with the idea that there's a sweet spot, an optimal either amount of empathy or a context in which empathy resonates. It allows you to do well. And so these are some data that we collected in just a community sample. And so these are kids who are generally pretty good at picking up other people's cues. We had very few kids who failed this task. And we had them do complete a number of behavioral measures. We had them recognize others' social cues. We had them complete Ken Dodge's hostile attribution bias task. We had them complete a sociometric measure so that we had a sense of how they fell in the social structure. And what we expected to find was that the kids who were weaker at reading social cues would also find ambiguous interactions, would find the potential of social interaction more distressing. We found just the opposite. It was the kids who were really good at reading social cues. And it wasn't just that they were seeing situations as more hostile, ambiguous situations as more hostile. It was that they were just distressed, regardless of what they saw. And so my colleague Erin and I started talking about these data and wondering if there's something physiological that might be setting these kids apart. And so in a separate study, and these are data that Erin has been collecting and we've been playing with, she brought in preschoolers. This is from a sample of 66 4 to 6-year-olds, and had them complete a phone call task. So they were sitting with a parent in another room and had a phone conversation with the parent. And the conversation went from happy, and they were put on hold, sad, put on hold, angry, happy again, and then angry again. While this was going on, Erin was tracking their physiological reactivity via heart rate and other measures. These were also videotaped so that the children's empathic responses could be recorded. And if you look at both their affective matching and the number and quality of empathic statements that they made, what you see is the kids fall out into two groups. So in terms of how much this relates to internalizing scores in general, what you see is that the orange line, the kids who were on physiological measures, and here I'm just showing physiological heart rate variability at rest, these kids, if they were empathic, they were also much more likely to show internalizing symptoms. The well-regulated kids, if they were highly empathic, they seem to be protected. And so what we think is going on, and this is broken out a little bit differently, rather than breaking the kids out by regulation levels, we broke them out by their scores on the internalizing scales. And I've shown the withdrawal subset or subscale just because the data are the easiest to explain, but the patterns are similar regardless of the measure you use. And so what you see, the x-axis here looks over time from the point at which the phone conversation starts, so they're resting. There is a significant difference between groups at that point. But what's more interesting is the pattern over time. So as the phone call proceeds, heart rate variability for both groups changes. At the very end of the conversation, though, they diverge really sharply, such that the top line, the blue line, the kids who are not showing many symptoms seem to recover. And the kids in the second group are not recovering at all. If anything, they may be getting a little bit worse. We don't know if this has to do with simply failure to recover over time, or if this is something specifically about anger, that these groups are really being differently dysregulated in terms of anger. And so based on this, what we've been trying to do is build a model that allows us to tease apart the high and low within kids who are highly empathic. Are there subgroups that we're not examining? And if that's the case, are they showing different kinds of physiological and neural profiles that we need to be examining? This is the piece where we're just beginning to gather data, and it's the place where I have questions for this room. When you look at the meta-analytic findings across studies examining neural activation in response to empathy, you get a pretty clear pattern. This is a meta-analysis from about 3 years ago. There's a lot more research since then. What I find myself wondering, though, is if we could parse these groups, could we then find more nuanced patterns that might give us a little bit more insight into different paths to depression that are associated with ostensibly positive skills like empathy? Thanks.